Next, we're going to create a Git repository on our command line. So, again, make darn sure you're in the right directory. Type pwd if you need to make sure you're in the right place. As I said, we want to make a separate Git repository for every project, not just one for the whole boot camp, because it's going to make it a lot easier for me, and it's good practice for you. So, if you're in your user directory, type. Who knows the command for creating a new Git repository? Yeah. Git init. Initialized empty Git repository in my directory /.git. On Unix machines, including Linux and Mac, putting a dot in front of a file name makes it hidden. On Windows, it doesn't do that, so you'll probably just see this thing. But we can open this in Finder nonetheless. So on a Mac, if I just say open space .git, I'll just type .g tab to make sure I don't type it wrong. On Windows, again, that is start instead of open. So start.git, and we'll open up a directory showing our Git directory. Now it just said initialized empty Git repository. This doesn't look empty to me. Yes, there's still a bunch of files in an empty Git repository, including config, description, head, and a bunch of directories. But this is an empty repository as there is no history in it yet. You never need to worry about the contents of this directory. This is the actual repository, and it's invisible to you. It just keeps track of it. But this is what the actual repository looks like. Now there's nothing in it, right? Let's type git status. And we see on branch master, no commits yet, but there is an untracked file, index.html. Untracked meaning Git is not paying any attention whatsoever to that file. If I typed commit now, it would ignore it. So right now, we're going to go into more detail about how Git works tomorrow. But for right now, we can make Git start paying attention to it by typing add. So git add index.html. And then if we type git status, we'll see no commits yet, but changes to be committed include this new file, index.html. And it's green now instead of red. So if we typed commit, that file would be included in the commit. What's going on? Okay. That's fine. Let's actually check that out. I'll make it happen on mine too, real quick. It didn't do it, but if you have on a Mac like a .ds store file, on Windows you might have thumbs.db. Those are files that Finder and Explorer use respectively to track how you want to view that thing. Actually, I can probably make it happen this way. Let's do this, then let's switch it to this style. I still don't have it. Oh, I'm ignoring it globally, probably. Well, anyway, we can use a git ignore file to ignore that file. We'll talk more about git ignored later, but we can just do it now since people are actually running into this already. If you have an extra file besides index.html, let's make git just ignore that thing permanently. So to create that file, we could either do it inside code or we could use the touch command. Touch creates an empty file. Let's use touch and create a file called .gitignore. Just like that. All lowercase, no spaces or anything. Touch.gitignore. And that will create a file. And if we look in code, we should see it show up here, gitignore. And in there, you can put a list of files that Git should just ignore and never include in a commit. So good things to put in there include .ds_S store and thumbs.db, files that Mac and Windows use respectively to keep track of how you like to view your folders. And hopefully, at that point, if you do a git status, it will be ignoring that file, but git ignore will be there. Okay, yeah. That's okay. We want to commit git ignore. One moment. So we want git ignore to be in the repo. So we only added index.html. You can also type git add dot, which will add every file. And again, that just means it's tracking it now. We still haven't actually added it to our history. So if I do a git status now, both files should be there. Git ignore and index.html. Right? So let's commit it. Git commit -m for message. This is how we put our commit messages. And we will just say initial commit. And now if I do git status, I'll see nothing to commit, working tree clean. We'll talk more about what terms like working tree and so on mean and what happens when you type git add, but not on day one. So now we have a repository. Good for us. Now, let's browse to GitHub. I'm going to hit this plus up here to add a new repository. New repository. Repository name. How about user directory? It's public, that's fine. Do not initialize this repository because we already initialized it locally. So just hit create repository. And then you'll see this. Quick setup if you've done this kind of thing before. We don't know what the heck we're doing. Ignore that. Or create a new repository in the command line. Already did it, so we don't want that. Or push an existing repository from the command line. We have an existing repository, so this sounds like us. Has two commands here, git remote add origin and git push -u origin master. Again, we'll go into more gruesome detail about what these things mean tomorrow. But for right now, let's just copy these. Notice there is a handy dandy little clipboard button here. Notice I also put stuff like that on the website for the class. So don't try to type what's here, just copy it. So click that. Let's go into our terminal. Let's type those two commands, or paste those two commands. And it will go ahead and run the first one, but it won't run the second one until you hit enter. And you should see branch master set up to track remote branch master from origin. I don't know what all those words mean just yet. But the upshot is, if you refresh this page on GitHub now, you should actually see your repository. And you should see that there's one commit there. Click on one commit, and you'll see initial commit. Hooray. Look at us.